fail-safe.
The results will be accurate and reliable.
How much more damage can I stand?
My name is Harriet Irving. I've lived in Pantego, Texas since 1970, and since 1974, I've been a precinct chair and an election judge in Pantego. I have served in city elections, presidential elections, special elections, amendment elections. The East Lakes are a serious problem. My last general election, we polled 1,500 that day at the polling place. After 500 ballots went through the reader, slid over the glass with the ink on the ballot, the glass smudged and the machine misread. The machine glass face on the reader had to be taken off and cleaned. The ballots refed. Did these ballots read correctly after they were fed? I have no idea. But since we did it, we polled 1,500 votes, I had to do that 3 times. So I had 3 machine failures that day alone. I believe in free and fair elections. I believe in the right of people to vote with the least amount of impediments possible. But I also firmly believe that people have a right to be absolutely certain their vote is counted. That's why I've come down to Austin today. I put 30 years into this, and I want people to know that. But our last primary in Tarrant County, we suffered 100,000 vote error because the programming at the central reader at the elections office was wrong. It kept re-adding the previous hour's totals into the new hour total.
How many votes?
100,000 vote error.
Some of the long lines were caused by machine shortages. Others were due to machine failures. Thousands of voters reported machine malfunctions in 42 states. Machine problems included touchscreens going blank, votes switching from one candidate to another, machine breakdowns and inaccurate totals. Some computer screens froze, causing delays as technicians tried to fix them. The technology that promised to make voting faster and more accurate was turning out to be unreliable. Mainstream news neglected to mention certain difficulties faced by voters, like vote switching. Though there was little TV or radio coverage, election hotlines were getting reports of vote switching from at least 13 states. Mahoning County, Ohio, was one place where votes were switching on multiple machines throughout the day. Some voters were prevented from voting after election officials selectively removed their names from the rolls.
In Ohio, which President Bush won by 118,000 votes, according to the official tally, there were 300,000, almost all Democratic voters, who were purged from the rolls immediately before the election.
George Bush's margin of victory in Ohio was almost 119,000 votes.
As long as we refuse to deal with the reality, we won't move forward. I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to get over it. I mean, that's what they tell you. Well, just get over it. You know, again, what I always say, what am I supposed to get over? Fundamental human rights, my commitment to democracy, my love of the Constitution and the country. I'm supposed to turn a blind eye when American citizens are disenfranchised because of the color of their skin? I don't think so.
The tactic known as caging involves two steps. First, registered letters are mailed to the homes of potential voters. Then the names of those who don't reply are deleted from the voter rolls. The Republican campaign staff mistakenly released data on the internet, which was discovered and then forwarded to BBC journalist Greg Palast.
We got in our computers from the Republican National Committee spreadsheets. These spreadsheets were addresses and names of tens of thousands of voters. The BBC confronted the Republican leadership and they said, oh, these are donor lists. This was a challenge list, a list for challenging voters en masse by the hundreds of thousands. And I'm finding page after page after page of African American soldiers. So the soldiers were shipped overseas. They got a letter from the Republican Party. It was not forwarded, so the Republicans said their address is suspect. You had thousands of African American soldiers whose votes were subject to Republican Party challenge because they were shipped overseas. And by the way, it's not illegal in the United States of America for a soldier to vote from Baghdad from their home district. Now, why wouldn't they fess up to this? Since 1965, the Voting Rights Act, targeting voters for a challenge, even if you have some grounds for it, but where race is a factor, is a felony.
How did hundreds and hundreds of thousands of votes shift, not in a progressive, incremental way, but in this almost complete, sudden, violent reversal? Remember, at the time these shifts are occurring, the people in lines are overwhelmingly African American citizens and college students at liberal campuses. If anything, the shift should be going in the other direction.
In the early morning hours, reporters were closely monitoring vote totals in the last states to be called, including New Mexico.
Judy Woodruff, help our viewers understand why we're now going back from the too close to call green column to the white column, in which we don't have enough information yet to make any projection.
Well, we're trying to figure all this out right now, Wolf. Apparently what has happened is that the Associated Press, they were feeding numbers into us, and then suddenly those numbers changed. In other words, there was about, I'm told, a 2,000 to 6,000 vote margin between President Bush's position and John Kerry's position, and then that margin grew suddenly to an 11,000 vote margin. And because of that, we now want to make sure, first of all, we want to find out what happened. What I'm telling you is that the numbers changed, and sometimes these things happen.
People in the room got quiet. It was funny because we were all observing this on our own, but collectively, we knew something wasn't right.
They're in Karl Rove's office, several senior staffers, and they're calling into the states. They're clicking up on these counties, looking at the results come in. And the president himself popped in a short time ago and said, what's the holdup? The motorcade is on the other side of the White House. It is gassed up and ready to go.
All right, let's get some numbers for you. As you can see, President Bush right now has 51% of the vote. Senator John Kerry has 48%.
If he hangs on too long without conceding beyond the point where it seems reasonable and where the media, for example, are calling the election, then he'll look like a sore loser.
Hello, I'm Wolf Blitzer in New York. 12 full hours after the last poll closings of election 2004, there's now an undisputed winner. The Democratic candidate for president, John F. Kerry, has conceded the race in a phone call to the Republican incumbent, President George W. Bush.
Earlier today, I spoke to President Bush and I offered him and Laura our congratulations on their victory.
I think today there is more sadness than there is anger. They're just feeling pretty sad about the whole thing because, as Jeff said, and we've watched them, they have given their all.